Welcome, everybody, to our 5th episode of Heresy at the Haven. It's a Wobbly Goblin podcast at Wobbly Goblin Adventures. We're coming to you from the Gamers Haven in lovely Spokane, Washington. We are your hosts. I'm Bob.
I'm Jay.
I'm Steven.
And this is a series of podcasts that we are doing kind of as a whole group. We're attempting to give tools to a new player who's considering Horus Heresy as a game they want to get into, talking about different list building aspects, anything from, heck, we've covered sportsmanship, we've got why you would take certain units, why you don't take certain units, why you don't take too many of some units, a lot of the different things in our previous episodes. But finally, we're going to start doing overviews on legions, and we're going to start with the Loyalist legions.
And they're going to shorter overview.
Yeah. Well, later on, after we get done with this series, we think it's 8-9 episodes. We're not sure where it's going to land. We are going to then start doing deeper dives into each legion. We're going to start talking about much deeper dives into the game in general, the meat and potatoes, if you will. But for now, this is just an overview where potential players can go through and decide if this is the game for them and what they would want to consider when picking a legion. And yeah, I think that's
makes perfect sense to me.
Really much covers it. So what we're going to be doing today is discussing some of the story and the background of each legion and the overall army rules that apply to each legion. Kind of how you would consider building your legion based on their strengths or not. Jay.
There is some not.
Right. Well, we're also going to be doing some future episodes. Once we get through the Loyalist legions, we're going to go to the Traitor legions. And then after that, we're going to start hitting some of the other, like Mechanicum, Custodes, Solar Exilia, some of the other non-legion factions that you can take into consideration as your force. I hope that this whole series will help a new player decide whether they want to get into Horus Heresy, and hopefully we're giving you guys the tools to help make that choice.
Yeah, because if you haven't read the books, you don't know what a Dark Angel is. You don't know what a Blood Angel is. So hopefully we can kind of give a little quick overview.
Yeah, a little background.
We'll give some credence to all these words we've been throwing around for a while.
And if you are a veteran, don't pick on us. We'll get into the meat and potatoes later. I promise.
It's coming.
I'll kick it off.
Sure.
We drew lots. I started with I got the Dark Angels, possibly because I play them a little bit also.
Probably part of it.
Something to really just make sure that we make clear, all of these Loyalist legions are found in the Loyalist book. So if you are intrigued by one of these that you hear, that's where you'll find the information on it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Make sure that
if I could make a quick note on the books, what's interesting about the Loyalist book and the Traitor book is the first half of both books are identical. We talked about the 4-sword charge, the HQ choices, elite choices, troop choices, fast attack, heavy, lords of war, the generic rights of war, the generic warlord traits. They're all identical in the first half. And then the second half of each book will have a small section on the 9 Loyalists in the Loyalist book and a small section on the 9 Traitors in the Traitor book. So it's you only have to have whichever book you have, but it's interesting because the front of each book is identical because these are all Space Marine legions fighting against each other until we get to this.
Really quick, now that we are diving into the legions themselves, and all that's coming from the story and the narrative, for you new players out there, really quickly, the Horus Heresy is a giant galactic civil war.
Right.
We keep throwing out Loyalists and Traitors. You're going to find out why.
And I think that's my cue.
Mm-hmm.
So the Dark Angels, they are the first legion of the 20. The Dark Angels were the first legion of the Emperor's Space Marine legions. In their earliest incarnation, they fought as a personal army of the Master of Mankind in the dawning years of the Great Crusade. And in the shadowed campaigns that preceded it. So their Primarch, as we've discussed before, Primarchs is Lionel Johnson. And their allegiance, as you know, are to Loyalists. And so their legion shrouded in mystery and probably the most secretive of all the Loyalist chapters for reasons that if you choose to go with them, you'll find out. And their culture stems from their homeworld of Caliban, where they formed knightly orders based on loyalty and They form their ranks into what is known as the hexagrammaton, known as the 6 hosts of the angels of death or the 6 divine ways, which are basically specialized formations that they used in battle. Elements of these hosts would exist on every battlefield, ready to take action according to their specialty. These elements would make their ability to differentiate in different situations that arise on the battlefield kind of above all. You could call the Dark Angels one of the factions in the game that are a Swiss Army knife.
Absolutely.
They can do everything, and they can technically do everything well. So
Can confirm.
their overarching Legion ability, all legions have a special ability that applies to the entire legion. So their legion ability is the hexagrammaton. That word is difficult.
Yeah, I've never read it.
Every unit.
You've never read
I've never read it right.
Loyalist book.
So every unit that you choose in your force organization is going to select one of 6 choices. Now, that's in the Dark Angel rules. You can read about it. And I have a synopsis for you. These are individual bonuses that apply to each unit specialization for the battle and represent different specializations that are used in mass warfare, like the knightly battles of old. Getting into that, this is the Legion that has 6 rights of war, which just happen to coincide with the fact that the hexagrammaton, man, that word is difficult, has their 6 options. So they will kind of become clear.
That's a lot of right of wars, too.
It is a lot of right of wars.
There's factions with 1, there's factions with 2. You guys get 6.
They get 6.
Are you saying the first Legion is favored?
There's first for a reason.
I say Loyalists are favored.
So
As they should be.
So rights of war for the Dark Angels. Just real quick, I'm going to list them and kind of just a basic idea of what they do. So the Steel Fist is based on the Iron Wing hex. I'm just going to say hex. They're tanks and transports. Mechanized warfare.
So they have their own mechanized right of wars.
They have their own mechanized right of war. Then you have the Eschaton Imperative, which is based on the Dread Wing, which is essentially big guns on infantry models that cause dangerous terrain on the entire battlefield. They basically are shaping the environment to eliminate their enemies. You would then have the Storm of War, which is based on Storm Wing. It's basically infantry assault. You're going to use a lot of infantry units, and you're going to run at your opponent. The Unbroken Vow is based on the Deathwing Hex. They're highly elite, tough melee infantry. As we stated in the last one, there are things called Terminators. Dark Angels have probably some of the best Terminators in the game that are based on a knightly order and things like that. And this really goes into the melee aspect. There's the next one is called the Seeker's Arrow. They're based on the Ravenwing Hex. They're mounted on bikes. They're fast attack. They're around the battlefield a lot. You're trying to outmaneuver your opponent, essentially. And the final one is called the Serpent's Bane. This one I kind of get as an Alpha Legion player. They're based on the Firewing, and they're essentially your command killers. They infiltrate, they snipe. Their basic goal, this rite of war, is to eliminate all sergeants, all HQs, all your praetors, your consuls, your champions. Break the army down from the head down. So that is a quick synopsis of the Dark Angels, kind of how they play, what they're kind of based on lore-wise. They're black, painted armor that looks really awesome.
Almost gothic.
Kind of gothic style.
A lot of hoods.
A lot of hoods. They're, like I said, they're based on knights. So if you like medieval history, they're an option that could very well intrigue you.
Yeah, for me, Dark Angels, I enjoy their style because, like you mentioned before, they're kind of a Swiss Army knife. And what you can do with those 6 hexagrammatons
See, I can't.
You can take a rite of war based on those wings themselves, or you can kind of go generic and you can mix and match.
Sure. So you can specialize in one
Yep.
force, or you can.
So they're very
Right.
flexible army.
Real
That's
diverse.
probably pretty good for a newcomer. I would say a lot of rules. They can be a little bit convoluted,
Yeah, their special rules I noticed are a little heavier than some of the other legions.
but still a good choice.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. The Deathwing in the we'll get to this much later, but the Chthonia campaign book. There's a great story where the the Imperial Fists and the Sons of Horus are fighting over this territory, fighting over this planet, and the Deathwing literally show up and are like, "Y'all got a little bit of time to get off the planet because we're killing the planet." And I don't care if you're loyalist or traitor, go get out. Which is it's just a great story. I thought it was a fun story. But
Really
the Deathwing, I wanted to dig deeper into them once I read that story because I don't know a lot about them. And I'm like, well, these guys are badass. Like they're just showing up saying, I don't care who you are, we're wiping the planet out.
Deathwing's my favorite.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay.
So that'll take us to the Second Legion, which we won't talk about.
We don't talk about the Second Legion.
I don't think we're allowed to talk.
I think it's Imperial Decree.
Right.
Third Legion and Fourth Legion are both traitors, and I will not mention their names here, but they will be in a coming episode, so stay tuned for that. Okay, it's the Emperor's Children and Iron Warriors. I guess if you like traitors, they're cool. I don't. So that brings us to number the Fifth Legion, the White Scars.
The White Scars. I will talk about the White Scars. Really done much looking at the White Scars in Horus Heresy. And man, I fell in love with their rules. There might be a White Scars army in my future.
You've been raving about
Yeah,
them
it's-
while
it's-
we've been building
It's
up
pretty
to this
fun.
episode.
It's pretty fun. And actually, in all I've been doing this for a minute or two. I really have never really paid much attention to the White Scars. I know they ride bikes. They're fast. Anyway, so I'm going to get into a little bit of Legion background. Now, one of the things I'll tell you guys is I cheated and just went to Wikipedia and found a great story about the White Scars to kind of give their doctrine. These guys have been writing their own stuff. I'm like copy and paste. But it's a great source if you want to dig deeper into the Legions.
It really is.
You can get Wikipedia and go find. So I'm going to read. The White Scars, originally known as the Star Hunters, were the 5th Legion of the original 20 Space Marine Legions of the first founding. Their Primarch is Jagatai Khan. Drawing on their tribal savagery of their homeworld, the White Scars practice a highly mobile method of warfare, tearing into their enemies with lightning-quick attacks and vanishing before response can be made. Despite being characterized as barbarians, the White Scars are a highly cultured chapter. Poetry is among their most respected and ancient traditions. They kind of have that. It's weird. I think Games Workshop's kind of gotten away from this a little bit, but they were really kind of the Genghis Khan, born in the saddle,
Pulling from history.
Right. They did that with a lot of the different legions early on.
I mean, Jagatai Khan.
Right. Yeah, the leader of a company is the Khan. Right. They're always referred to as Khans. Another interesting thing I found out is fluff-wise, narrative-wise, they don't necessarily like taking dreadnoughts in their armies because I found this little clip says, as a warrior society uniquely bound to the fierce joys of battle and the simple pleasures of physical existence, the eternity and silence and separation endured by those incarcerated within a dreadnought chassis held a particular horror for the White Scars. So you'll find out dreadnoughts, if you don't know what they are, it's basically a great hero who is so mortally wounded but not dead. They put him in basically a walking sarcophagus, a dreadnought, but they sleep until they're woken to fight, and then they go back to sleep. So they're devastating in the game, but White Scars in their story arc doesn't mean they wouldn't take dreadnoughts, but apparently they don't take a lot of dreadnoughts. They do have an army-wide special rule that I found really interesting. It's called Swift to Action, and it gives all units in your White Scars army a +1 movement. And we'll dig in later as to why that's a big deal, but it's a pretty big deal. Like it really changes. It's a small nuance that changes how a lot of the units work on the tabletop. They also, I thought this was kind of fun. So at the beginning of a game of Horus Heresy, or just about any game, you and your opponent roll off to see who gets first turn. The person who gets highest gets to choose to go first or second. White Scars roll 2d6 and pick the highest to see if they can go first or not. So they have
different.
That is different. That really kind of gets into their lore of being fast, the fast strike,
The lightning
ambush,
strike.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So if they want to go first, they're going to have a better chance of going first. They have 2 rights of war. The first one, and I'm going to butcher these names, White Scar players out there, don't pick on me too much. The Kagorian Brotherhood, and it focuses heavily on that whole cavalry mentality. You get a lot of bonuses if you take this Rite of War by making there's two types of motorcycles or bikes in, I guess not motorcycles, but bikes in Horus Heresy. You've got the Outriders, which have wheels on them like a traditional motorcycle. And then you have just drew a blank. Sky Hunters, thank you very much, that are grab bikes. These are normally fast attack choices. When you take this Rite of War, it actually moves them into the troop choice slot, and they become line as well. So if you're wanting to go with that kind of traditional white scars, lots of bikes, that's your Rite of War for sure.
It really feeds into the lore.
Yeah, it does for sure. The negative to that, though, because every Rite of War will have a downside, is you're not allowed to take any heavy sport choices. So you're not going to have a lot of big tanks there. You're not going to have a lot of heavy firepower support, protecting your army when you're moving it forward. Their second Rite of War, and this is the one that really made me happy because I could see a Traitor Legion like this real easily.
This is what he's been raving about for a long time.
Right. The Magyar Mazan. I know I butchered that. It's the whole premise of this is the White Scars with that kind of barbarian mentality is if you've been dishonored, normally your leader, commander, captain, whatever is going to kill you. You've been dishonored. But some are allowed the ability to
repent,
die in battle gloriously,
or redeem themselves.
There you go. Redeem themselves by dying in battle honorably. What's interesting about this Rite of War is it focuses on infantry, so you get a ton of benefits to your infantry that are really powerful. But it's interesting because it goes against kind of the whole concept of the White Scars of being a lot of bikes, a lot of that born in the saddle, that lightning strike. And now instead you have a bunch of infantry running across the table, and boy, do they run across the table. The bonuses you get from this Rite of War speed up the White Scars just absolutely tremendously. So what I found interesting about this is even though if you were to take, so what I think what a White Scars army would look like is if you were taking the first Rite of War, the Chagorian Brotherhood, you would obviously focus on a lot more cavalry, but you could still take other units to support. You can still take infantry. You can't take the heavy support, but there's other ways to get maybe some firepower on the table through other elite choices and whatnot. Sure. And if you decided to take the Magyar Mazan, then you would have great bonuses to your infantry, but you could still take bikes. You could still take whether they're the grab or the wheeled bikes. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility in how we would build that army. And like I said, man, I'm although building a white army right now, White Scars are white armor. I'm not really excited about doing another white army right now, but it's this just came to me as we're sitting here.
They're dishonored, so they're not allowed to mount.
Oh, that's a good point. That's
so
a real good point.
Kind of feeds into they're willing to die, so they're going to be quick across the battlefield. They're going to be headed to their death to repent their honor.
And a lot of the benefits they get give them big benefits in close combat. So yeah, they're raging.
So I think that actually feeds into the lore as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think they're a really underrated legion. A lot of people you might see out there as you peruse other websites or videos kind of put them down, but the White Scars have a lot going on. I think it's kind of under the surface people don't realize. Yeah, which again, we'll dive into on a deep dive video here coming up.
I think a lot of the legions I think it's a lot more balanced than people will give them credit for. I'd say that.
Yeah, I think you can find different ways to build. But yeah, I think that it's just a really interesting force. I really love that whole barbarian, horseback, born in the saddle. Like it's just the whole concept of it's really fun. I think it's a neat army.
You enjoy charging infantry across the board in a close combat? I wouldn't.
I don't know what you're talking about, Jay.
That doesn't sound like a World Eaters player at all.
It would sure give me a diverse, army to play. So different from the army I play.
Another white infantry,
white infantry army that's running into close combat.
You kind of have the other one you play is Death Guard too, and that's just like slowly moving across the battlefield.
Yeah,
except it's faster.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that for sure. But yeah, I'm excited about doing a deep dive. I'll probably take that episode when we do a deep dive into White Scars because I would really like to explore some of the things they can do.
Awesome.
All right. Well, next on the list is Space Wolves, and that happens to be me as well. So
these are in no particular order. Personally, we just drew lots, and some of us get to talk more back to back than others.
Right. We potentially were like, I'll take this legion. I'll take this legion. Then like, hey, we should do them in numerical order, and then we put them up in numerical order and realized that.
We'll get through.
So the 6th Legion, the Space Wolves, interesting enough, similar to White Scars, but even more barbarian. If you're looking at the White Scars as being the Genghis Khan,
Cultured.
Right now we're talking about
Vikings.
Yeah, that's what these guys are all about. So again, I cheated. Here is right from the wiki. Space Wolves are the 6th Legion of the 20 Space Marine Legions. Their Primarch, Leman Russ. And during the Great Crusade, they gained a reputation as the Emperor's executioners and instruments of punishment, which kind of ties back into that 2nd Legion we don't talk about. The Wolves are almost as renowned for their passion for eating, drinking, and storytelling when not engaged in battle. In contrast to the monastic habits of other chapters, thank you, they enjoy boisterous feasting, eating enormous amounts of mead, and guzzling mjord, a liquor so potent that it would eat through the guts of a normal human. To many outsiders, therefore, the Space Wolves appear barbarous and lacking in self-control, but in reality, it takes a great deal of discipline and focus to be as dangerous and capable of anything as the Space Wolves are. They're known for being the most ferocious fighters of the Loyalist Legion.
Reading that, I kind of want to hang out with those guys.
I don't want to drink that.
I don't want to drink that, but I wouldn't mind hanging out.
Right? All right, so their army-wide special rule, really good. As a World Eaters player to my core, I really wish I had this. Their army-wide special rule there is called Bestial Savagery, and that means their infantry units, all of their infantry units can shoot and charge even after they run. And that dives into a bit of a rule in this game where normally you can augment your movement by giving up shooting and assaulting to get extra movement. Maybe you need to get up and get behind cover. Well, these nutters can literally move, run, and still shoot and charge. Now, there's limitations to their shooting. That gives them such mobility. These guys can fly across the table at high speed.
They're probably so drunk they don't realize they're not supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah, they're just savages, screaming and run across. Then the units that cannot run, such as Legion Cataphractii Terminators, they're slow, they're heavy infantry are not allowed to run. What they do with this army-wide special rule is they get a +1 weapon skill on the turns they successfully charge. So you're getting a bonus whether you can run or not with that. It really focuses on the infantry running across the table, charging, which is exactly what a bunch of crazed drunken barbarians would do, right?
Yeah.
They just run across the table and charge. The rights of war. Now, this one I really like. So there is a lot of stuff about them being the executioners. There's a lot of stories of the Emperor sending the Space Wolves out to take care of something specifically. Magnus did nothing wrong. Their first right of war is called the Black Watch, and I find it really interesting as a right of war because it can only be applied to an allied legion. And there's not a lot of rights of war.
That's the first I've seen that.
Yeah, there's not a lot of right of war that do that. And we talked about in the last episode where you have your force organization chart. You can actually take an allied second force organization chart of another legion or another faction. It doesn't have to be a legion, but another faction. So this is a right of war only for an allied detachment. It's called the Black Watch. And it gives gives great special rules against traitor factions, specifically their Primarchs. So these guys are literally their special rules. If you take this, you have an allied detachment that's going out to hunt their Primarch.
Okay,
and that is pretty cool.
That's cool.
Not a lot of negatives to it. I think it's mostly because it is only for an allied detachment. Their second one, the Pale Hunters, it really focuses on the hunting aspect of the Space Wolves. So the Pale Hunters gives units from your force much more mobility. It gives them a special rule called Hit and Run, which we can talk about later, as well as some of the units getting bonuses from arriving from outflank. So outflank is when your reserve units come in from the board edges. And when you do that with units that have this right of war, they get a bunch of bonuses the turn they show up. So it's them jumping out and, I got you. And
flanking maneuvers.
Right. And a very brutal flanking maneuver, which makes sense as the Pale Hunters, right?
Right.
It does, unfortunately, limit your heavy support choices if you take that right of war. So it's another one of those where you're going to get a bonus if you have a bunch of infantry that are doing these cool things, but you're not going to have the heavy support, big tanks necessarily supporting them as they run across the table. They have a third right of war. It's called the Bloody Claw. And this one's also pretty interesting because it's a one-time use. You pop this right of war, and it gives all your units in your army a brutal assault. So it's something you want to set up. If you have an army that you want to build in such a way that the whole army is going to kind of move forward and assault all at once. If you're only assaulting 1 or 2 units at a time, if you're playing kind of a cat and mouse type army, this isn't the one. But if you're moving up and everything's going to hit all at once, you pop this Rite of War, and everyone gets massive bonuses for the turn they charge.
Sounds right up your alley.
Yeah, except I'm not a big fan of the Space Wolves.
Okay.
Not a big fan.
Because they're loyalist.
Yeah, there's more.
There's more. Okay.
We'll
Deeper.
get to that. We'll go deeper in that.
That's a personally held rule.
So yeah, the negative of that is it's the only benefits you get from that Rite of War is it is 1 use per game. You pop it, everybody gets the bonus, and then it's gone, which is kind of an interesting one. Pretty straightforward of what an army like this would look like, I think. I think you're going to have a lot of fast-moving assault. Keep in mind, when you're talking about an army that has a whole bunch of that specializes in shooting, it doesn't mean you can't take assault units.
Right.
If you have an army that specializes in assaulting, doesn't mean you can't take heavy support shooting units. But I would imagine just a lot of barbarians. They have some special troop choices that are large squads, loaded up with close combat weapons, racing across the table, smashing into the opponent.
That move, run, and charge is so fast.
It's so fast. That is such a good special rule. It's just crazy. It makes them so mobile, and it's frustrating as a person who also plays a close combat army, is to try to get the charge off against them. Very difficult. Yeah. If you're a loyalist player looking for an assault army, this is probably one of the armies you want to look at.
Or if you just love Norse mythology.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the models like ruins all over them, a lot of wolf tails, wolf pelts.
They have all kinds of pelts.
Long beards, braided hair, the whole bit. Yeah, for sure.
I was very tempted.
Oh man, I'd love playing against you if you had those.
I know.
I love playing against Space Wolves.
I know.
You love killing Space Wolves.
I love killing Space Wolves.
All right. Well, that'll bring us to the 7th Legion. The Imperial Fists, the ultimate loyalist.
I don't know if they're the ultimate.
Dorn's dogs.
The Legion that swung the Heresy, protected Terra,
and
ultimately led to the defeat of the Traitor Legions.
There's some other loyalist legions out there that just weren't close enough.
They helped.
Horus did that. He made sure they were.
But without the Fists, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, Fafnir Ron actually when I was reading the books about Siege of the Emperor's Palace, I'm not a big fan of I was an old school Iron Warriors player. Imperial Fists have never been. That's their arch nemesis. Never been a fan, but reading about Fafnir Ran, man, that's a cool character. Yeah, so tell us about him.
A lot of cool stuff going on with the Imperial Fists. Like I said, they're kind of the ultimate loyalist of the Space Marine Legions. They were actually assigned to be the ultimate defenders of Terra and the Sol system, as they called it in this game. So
they're the siege master.
Yep.
Right.
They're masters of siegecraft and defense. They played a huge role, like I mentioned. They are known for following a universal combat doctrine. Nothing specifically besides siege warfare, but they're just trying to excel at everything they can. One thing you think about the Horus Heresy, actually, is they tried introducing teleportation technology. During the Heresy, teleportation technology was few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of one of the cool things about being an Imperial Fist player is you have access to that teleportation technology, which gameplay-wise comes to that deep strike we mentioned in the previous episode.
Brutal.
You can give pretty much all your infantry deep strike if you would like. Yeah. So the Imperial Fist army-wide special rule is a pretty basic one. It's pretty good. It's straightforward as well. They shoot better. They get basically a +1 to hit when you're rolling your dice with any weapon classified as bolt or auto.
Which is the majority of all the weapons.
So what that means, this kind of represents those mass-produced weapons that all armies use. All attack marines come with a bolt gun. Mm-hmm. Every army has access to auto cannons, and Imperial Fists they shoot them better than everyone else does. The rights of war for the Imperial Fist, we'll start with one called the Stone Gauntlet. This is a narrative and we'll just say really, really solid rights of war for the Imperial Fist.
So good.
That's kind of the epitome of the Imperial Fist doctrine of being an immovable object at the same time being an unstoppable force.
Right.
That's how I kind of put it. Lets you take their special units called Phalanx Warders. Just picture a Marine with a giant metal door on his arm.
Right.
Dorn's doors.
It really comes back to that shield wall doctrine and kind of our history. You can take mass amounts of them and it makes them immensely more survivable. And they just walk across the board, surviving any fire put at them. And at the same time, they can put a lot of damage. Mm-hmm. So super fun. We'll move on to the next one called the Hammerfall Strike Force. I mentioned earlier about teleportation. This Rite of War is actually letting you deep strike your infantry anywhere on the board for even cheaper. So you can actually take a war gear upgrade anyway and teleport. And this Rite of War is just saying your whole army is teleporting.
Wow.
Yeah. So starting turn 2, you start rolling, all your armies coming in wherever you want, basically.
Sure. It's
Yeah.
hard to prepare for that.
It's a different way to play the game, but it's super fun. The last Rite of War for the Imperial Fists is called the Templar Assault. So the Imperial Fists have a unit called Templar Brethren. It's kind of the elite of the elite in the Imperial Fists Legion. They have all the best war gear, they have all the best weapons, and they're sent in when stuff gets bad and they got to take out the bad guys anytime. This Rite of War lets you take multiples of them as troops. If they're in vehicles, they charge out. They get bonuses on the charge, more attacks. So you kind of picture this armored column disgorging all these Templars into battle to your opponent's line. So the Imperial Fist is just a really, really solid legion. Solid rules are not flashy. Definitely wouldn't call them flashy.
Bright yellow.
Okay. Flashy to the eyes. But a solid legion overall, and you can't go wrong if you pick this legion.
They're kind of the shoot first, shoot later, shoot some more. When everybody's dead, try and ask a question or two legion.
Yeah, definitely a shock attack force.
Yes.
I mean, you could. They're sturdy. They're hard to kill, and they can just hit like a brick. They really can.
They honestly excel close combat and shooting.
They do.
And survivability.
So don't play them.
Wait, and movement.
No, it's a great force.
And they're really easy to paint.
A lot of people say yellow's pretty hard to paint.
Yellow can be tough.
When you take his approach, they're easy to paint.
Oil wash. Well, Bob, you introduced me to oil wash.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go over that in later episodes as well.
So you need to follow us on the Imperial Fists. We good there? I think we're going to go ahead and stop here for this episode. We'll take a little bit of break. So if you like our content, you want to see more, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Help grow our channel is great. We can create better content that way. Make sure to check out the Patreon link in the tree posted below, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
It's a wobbly a goblin. Wobbly a goblin?